working. So let me turn that on and just kind of restart again. There we go. Sawadee krap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. This is our group learning program where we study the words of the Buddha going through this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This is volume 1 of the book series, and we're in chapter 2 now. Every Sunday, we cover a chapter in this book, and we progress through the book week by week. So if you have a version of this book that you've either downloaded from our website, buddhadailywisdom.com, or you've taken that file and go print it, or you've ordered a copy off of Amazon, you can be reading these chapters before class and or after class and progress through this program where you build up this foundation and understanding the path to enlightenment based on the teachings of the Buddha. Today in chapter 2, we're studying why we're exploring why study Gotama Buddha's teachings. This chapter I wrote in order to help students decide right at the beginning and start to kind of reflect on why is it that they're actually choosing to study the Buddha's teachings, because starting with chapter 3 and beyond, we really get into the Buddha's teachings quite deeply. So the first chapter that we discussed last week is kind of like a bridge to help students move from any other traditions that they're currently studying or whatever it is that led them to this point, and kind of help them see that it's very possible to move from those traditions into learning the Buddhist teachings and add those into what you currently understand about the various traditions that exist in the world. This particular chapter is designed to help you understand why would somebody even be interested or willing to study Gotama Buddha's teachings. And if you've read the book, chapter 2, then you understand my thoughts on this topic, and I shared those in the actual book. But in order to continue in this program, and the way that I've kind of structured it is to use this particular week in order to have a group discussion where we can come together and get to know each other and talk and understand a little bit about each other, because now we're 6 weeks into the restart of this group learning program, and it's a great time now that we've been studying pretty deeply over the last 5 or 6 weeks to now just kind of sit back and maybe talk a little bit with each other, start to understand why is it that you've chosen to study the teachings of the Buddha. And as I mentioned, if you've read this chapter, then you understand what I feel and what I've shared in this particular topic. But rather than me teach you why I feel it's important to study Gotama Buddha's teachings, instead, I would like to open up a discussion where we can all have a dialogue and understanding about why is it that you've chosen to actually study the Buddha's teachings. So what we're going to do is just open things up in Zoom, where anybody who's in Zoom can raise your hand electronically and share your thoughts on why it is that you've studied or decided to study Gotama Buddha's teachings. And if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, you can put those comments into the comment section, and our moderators will be able to share that during the class. But also, if you're in Facebook or Zoom, or I'm sorry, if you're in Facebook or YouTube and you typically don't come into Zoom, you're welcome to log in, because there's login information in the description of the Facebook video that you're watching now, the live stream, and the live stream in YouTube. You should be able to see the login credentials to be able to get into Zoom. That way we can get a chance to interact more readily throughout our discussion. So what I'll do is just kind of open things up to all of you guys to share what it is that has brought you to decide to learn and practice the Buddha's teachings.
Well, hello teacher, and hello everyone. Well, from my experience, I started to study and learn these teachings a few years ago, and during these years, I was able to see that these teachings work. I mean, they helps to eliminate discontentedness in the mind. They are able to help one to get rid of some painful feelings, which I think many people who live in the world now think that this is natural or normal part of the human existence. Living with stress, living with anxiety, living with fears, anger, a lot of painful feelings. I think many people think that this is normal part of the human existence, and there is no way to get rid of all of these painful feelings. Not only on the mental side, I don't have a good medical background, but I can see that there were some improvements on the bodily side. I mean, things related to the blood pressure. I always had a lot of repeated headaches, which I don't have, I can say, at all these few days. These few years. So there is a lot of benefits on the mental state and on the bodily side as well. I think that living in this world while having the wisdom of these teachings will be a wonderful bonus. Living in this world without the wisdom of these teachings made me or led me to face a lot of difficulties and troubles in my life, which most of them, the vast majority of them, I don't have now. I was able also to observe that with practicing these teachings, one is able to be a better person, a better friend, and I'm sure this will also help one to be a better parent or a better life partner also. Knowing why one is facing the troubles and problems in life leads one to be able to eliminate the causes and reasons for these troubles and be able to go forward in life without these repeated troubles and difficulties. A good way to increase that space of peace and serenity in the mind is also one of the great benefits I had while practicing these teachings. So for sure, if teachings are offered for anyone and everyone freely with no cost, teachings that will help anyone to progress to a better life and a better existence, so why not take the step and start practicing these teachings? So I'm really grateful for the day I decided to start learning these teachings.
How long have you been learning now, Basam?
About 3 years.
Okay.
The first year it was only reading the book. There wasn't a lot of seeking guidance with you. Maybe the first 6, 7, 8, or 10 months. But since then, I noticed that it's really helpful to seek guidance. So the first year maybe was without a lot of guidance.
What were you doing in the first year that's different than what you're doing now?
In the first year, my goal was to check the teachings to see if they really work or not. I'm going to dedicate time and effort to study and practice some teachings. So I needed to be sure that these teachings will really help me to progress to a better life. Okay.
And you've been noticing all those benefits that you mentioned in the last 3 years?
More than these, what I have mentioned.
Oh, okay. So it's these benefits and more that you've experienced in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So elimination of headaches, more calmness, more stability in the mind, better decision making, more concentration.
And a lot of benefits regarding concentration and fears. I had a lot of troubles with fears and concentration. I can say that till now, I haven't seen anyone in my life who had this amount of fears, almost from everything and anything, and also concentration. I can remember that while studying at university, I didn't attend the lectures because I didn't have the ability to focus for 3, 4, 5 minutes. So I didn't go to university for the 3 or 4 years.
So how long can you focus now?
I can observe times when this mind was able to focus for more than 8, 9 hours.
Oh, great. So you went from not even being able to focus for 3 to 5 minutes to 8 or 9 hours now in 3 years. So what do you think out of the 3 years of study, what do you think has been most impactful, and what would you share with somebody who's maybe just starting out on the path? What was it that you learned kind of early on that really helped you move in this direction?
Well, what I did at the beginning was to check the teachings and be sure that they really work, which was something I didn't use to before. I mean, in other traditions, the way of practicing teachings was totally based on belief. So this wasn't the case here. I was able to see the benefits and results by myself and be sure that since there are some benefits in this short time, so all what I need to do is just to continue learning, seeking guidance, and practicing the teachings, and for sure, the whole rest of these painful feelings and difficulties in life will be totally eliminated. I can see also that practicing generosity was really helpful, and it had a lot of positive impact on my practice.
You say that you investigated the teachings and you looked to see if they were actually true. How did you do that?
Well, learning these teachings and then spending some time, maybe daily, maybe weekly, to reflect on these teachings to see that they really make sense. Then starting to practice them while having awareness of mind and seeing how the mind functions in these situations previously, or I mean prior to learning these teachings and practicing them, and how differently the mind is functioning now in the similar situations. This was a good chance to see the benefits and the progress that the mind is gaining day after day.
So with these results that you've experienced, how important has meditation been to help you experience those results?
I wasn't able to observe significant improvements before I started practicing meditation, mindful meditation, 3 times a day. This was a stepping point. I think this is what's called a stepping point before and after. So the mind had more concentration and focus after starting to dedicate 3 sessions every day for meditation.
From the time that you started learning and practicing until the time that you started doing 3 sessions per day, how long of a time did it take you to build up to 3 sessions per day?
At first, I was kind of lazy because I didn't see the benefits. But maybe after 2 months, I noticed how successful are this practice. I mean, meditation. So right away, I dedicated 2 sessions a day for about 20 minutes each session. And after maybe 2 more months, I started to dedicate 3 sessions for 30 minutes each session.
And how do you balance between breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation? Are you doing both? And if so, what's kind of like the amount that you do breathing mindfulness versus loving kindness meditation?
Well, I can remember since I was a child, there wasn't a lot of hatred towards people. So my practice for loving kindness meditation, I mean, even anger. So my practice for my loving kindness meditation We can say that it's maybe once a day for 6-7 months. And then whenever I observe that there is a situation that arises, even a slight anger in the mind, I dedicate 1, 2, or more sessions towards this specific person whom I had anger towards. So there isn't a kind of consistent average or a consistent practice for loving kindness, but whenever it's needed, I practice it.
Has learning and practicing the Buddhist teachings had any impact to your personal or professional relationships and your career?
Yes. Working as a teacher is not something it's easy. So yes, talking to a lot of people was something that caused, or my cravings for not being among a lot of people caused me a lot of fears. I would say that even being here in a class, in a live class, it wasn't something I have imagined someday that I would be able to do. So there was a lot of fears to stand in front of some teachers or even some students in the beginning of my career. So this helped to eliminate a lot of cravings. I'm not sure about this expression, but maybe it helped to gain some more confidence, or maybe people call it as self-confidence. So even professional careers, personal careers, it had a positive impact and still has a positive impact on all relationships.
So you live in Egypt, which is predominantly a Muslim country. What is it like learning and practicing the Buddhist teachings in a country that I imagine aren't very many people that are interested in Buddhism or maybe practicing Buddhism right now? What's it like for you there?
Well, for the part about moral conduct, I see a lot of similarity between what Gautama Buddha taught and what people are practicing in regard of Muslim teachings. It's really a challenge. Yeah, I would confess it's really a challenge, but with these difficulties, one has a chance to deeply practice these teachings. This is the only way I have. I mean, either to live with all these painful feelings and all these difficulties in life, or to go in this path, and things will only get better and better. So I didn't go outside Egypt before, but I can surely say that practicing these teachings in anywhere, anytime, it's not easy, but it's the perfect way to live this life.
Okay. And what has been the most difficult for you in learning and practicing the Buddhist teachings so far?
You mean about the discontentedness I have, or the teachings themselves?
The teachings themselves. And what part of building up your practice has been the most difficult for you so far?
Ego. Eliminating ego.
Okay. And what part of the Buddhist teachings have you found that aren't true?
None.
So everything you've learned so far, you've found that has been true?
Because I practiced them myself, and I have seen and still seeing every day that they are the truth.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thanks, teacher.
Yeah. So is there anyone else who would like to share, why they have decided to study Gautama Buddhist teachings, either in Zoom or Facebook or YouTube? You can share, and anybody has questions for Basam, you can ask Basam questions as well. We can have a open discussion to talk with each other. Perhaps there are certain questions that you guys have always been interested to ask Possum. You're welcome to do that as well.
Well, for now, it seems that Nick has his hand raised. Let's go to him.
Thank you, Possum. Hello, Teacher David. I remember the last iteration we did this chapter 2, and it spoke a pretty lengthy part on why I started studying the Buddhist teachings. But I think today, what's more important would be to why I keep studying Gotama Buddha's teachings and why I keep studying with a teacher. I started like most people, just discontentedness. But the reason I'm sticking with it is because of the benefits. Right away, I could tell you when I established right view, that's when some bad habits just fell right off. I don't drink alcohol. I'm not using the vape. Don't smoke cigarettes. Don't chew tobacco. I don't do these harmful things to the body anymore. And that's because cravings have been significantly reduced. And that's just by establishing right view. And to establish right view, the first layer would be to understand the Four Noble Truths, the three universal truths, and a general idea of the natural law of karma. Everything's cause and effect. Don't go around blaming others. Everything is the result of your own decisions. I think, with that, when someone can grasp that, based on my experience, you're making some headway. So bad habits just stopped. And when that stopped, like, no alcohol, I have more clarity of mind, I'm feeling healthier. I'm just feeling good. The difference has been from like being off the path and then starting the path and establishing right view. The difference has been night and day. I've never felt better in my entire life. The relationships that are around me are all better. And there's no trouble, not much difficulty. Under the guidance of having a teacher with these teachings and this study, it's been significantly helpful. You can read like these teachings and try to grasp them, but then when you put them to practice in everyday worldly situations, it's difficult. So whenever I'm having trouble, I set up a Zoom or a private message to Teacher David, and we go over things. Certain things that would take years to master, or years to figure out on your own, if at all. But with the guidance of Teacher David, it's very easy, it's seamless. The difficulties I struggled with beginning on the path was how to navigate an ex-spouse, how to go around, how to navigate some cravings, things like this. So Teacher David, he taught me how to skillfully kind of walk around the landmines to get to the goal. And the strategies that I learned and have employed have been beautiful. I don't have any issues with the ex-spouse. I haven't in a long time. So everything's going well. So discontentedness, I've known, has been significantly reduced. And some of these things are just so simple, but yet so difficult at the same time. To significantly reduce, the unwholesome karma production would just be to follow the 5 precepts, right? That's simple enough to understand, but actually doing it, can be difficult. But the reasons I'm continuing to go is because I've noticed the condition of my mind has improved, and it keeps improving. So there's more to go. I often compare this path to enlightenment much like a journey on martial arts. I practice jujitsu, and it's very, very similar. I've noticed both are slow, gradual progress. Slow, gradual progress. Can't rush anything. You know, you're not going to be a black belt on the mats in a day. The same thing with this path to enlightenment. Things I've learned, I know that the mind goes through 4 jhanas before entering the 4 stages of enlightenment. So I don't know if this is right or whatever, but I often think of that as much like the progress on martial arts, you know, belts and stripes almost. You know, it's just how I think of it, you know, and it lets me know that, you know, progress is slow and gradual. That's how you become good at anything. So I've always been a trainer, or I've always been training in athletics, you know, different sports, different things like this, military. So I've trained the body a lot. But this, I found the Buddha left like a blueprint of how to train your mind. And I've never encountered anything like it, but it's much like training anything else. You know, it's going to take dedication, determination, and diligence, as Teacher David says. And that's the truth right there. So that's how I see it. And that's what I was interested to share today.
Thank you, Nick. How long have you been learning and practicing the Buddha's teachings?
Well, I'll tell you, in 2017, I hit rock bottom. You know, I went into a deep depression after that. So I started around 2019, I would say. I started tinkering around with spirituality a little bit. But then in 2020, that's when I picked up the Buddha's teachings. I first started saw them by following spiritual things. I started seeing like the memes and things. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's kind of cool. So I started investigating that more. And then I found you, Teacher David, in your Facebook group and all the resources. And that has proven to me to be a very valuable source. Like everything that a practitioner can need, you provide. So I haven't really had to shop around anywhere else, and nor have I seen anyone explain these things as well as I'm being taught now. So I'm here to stay here for the long run because I see it works. But to answer your question, let's see, I've been doing this about 2 years now. 2 years now, studying the true teachings.
You mentioned about how in the past you had some challenges in relationships and now it's not that way anymore. Is it possible for you to share some examples of some things that you struggled with in the past in relationships and how it's different now and what it took for you to go from where you were before to where you are now?
Sure, I think I can answer that. Well, what took me to go from where I was to now, I would definitely say meditation has been key. Establishing the 4 foundations of mindfulness. The first one, the bodily sensations. When you have awareness of that, you're able to cut things off and let them go easier. You cannot do that just by talking about it or being told, hey, this is what it is. You actually have to do it. And again, that's something else that's just like martial arts. You got to actually get on the mat and do it. You know, so meditation, you actually got to get on the floor, get in a chair and do it, or lay down, walk, you know, the different ways you can do it. But that's what you have to do. So it's different, you know, reading about it or talking about it compared to actually doing it. So once you actually do it, that will give anyone the ability to slow down, practice the pause, things like that. So meditation is key for that. The other things that I needed to be able to navigate someone such as the ex-spouse would be some of the moral conduct things on the Eightfold Path. For example, right speech. Using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, it's like the Buddha says, your speech, it should be blameless it's going to be blameless by using those 5 factors, and it's beyond reproach by the wise. So having blameless speech, some patience for meditation, and some skills under the guidance of a teacher on how to actually do it. For example, what worked for me was, hey, tell your ex-spouse that you want to have a discussion, okay, instead of just going into it and passing. Because for someone off the path, their craving might spike right up, especially with someone with history. So instead of just going right into the conversation, now I kind of schedule an event. So the first thing in the 5 factors of well-spoken speech is proper time. So if someone's off the path, and you just start a discussion with them right away and they have a lot of craving, their craving is going to spike. That's not a proper time to have a conversation with someone like that. Because without skills, if someone's craving goes up, your own craving, anger, or ignorance might go up. So that makes it more difficult when someone's animated to stick to your teachings. So that's one of the ways I do it. I kind of schedule something, let the person know, hey, this is the topic I'd like to discuss. Let their craving go up, let it come down, wait a couple days, go in it again, let their craving go up, whatever it is, whatever we're discussing, let their craving go up and say, hey, we don't have to make a decision. Why don't I give you a call next week or something? Let their craving come down. And then you can finally finish the conversation. So something that, I would just expect before I was off the path, just boom, have one conversation, get it done, let's have a definitive answer. That doesn't work. That doesn't work, especially with someone like an ex-spouse, in my experience. So what I've learned from you, Teacher David, is to kind of, even though it's one conversation that, we're trying to figure out, I kind of slowly got to trickle in, like slowly. It might take a week or two to finish the conversation. And that's how I've been navigating things without difficulty. 5 factors of well-spoken speech, meditation, and basically that strategy.
So you're kind of restraining your own craving of wanting to go in and have a conversation and convince somebody of your idea and get an answer right away. You're restraining that, and you're saying, hey, ex-wife, I would like to have a conversation about X. Maybe you can think about that and we can get together in a few days or next week and talk about this. And then you kind of spread it out over multiple conversations as a way to allow her mind to kind of adjust to what it is that you would like to talk about. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly right. Before I was off the path, I had my own expectations to have the conversation done right then and there, right away. And then I'm wondering, well, I think this is a reasonable thing, why can't it be done now, Mm-hmm. But what I think is reasonable might not be to someone else, based on their experiences or their perceptions or what have you.
Right, because in these situations, our mind has done all the thinking and all the reflection, and we did that over multiple days, and we've come to some conclusion. And then because of one's own craving, we want to get this other person on board with it. And we kind of have this expectation that in one conversation, they're going to go from not having any conversation on this topic at all to, yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And because of our own craving, we're expecting that person within a 15 or 30-minute conversation to go from 0 to 100. And then it blows up in our face and we're like, what just happened? This is such a great idea. But we don't realize that we actually spent, multiple days reflecting on that and figuring that out. And by us giving that other person the time to do that same process of coming to understand what it is that we understand, this is a practice of loving kindness and compassion, as well as using those 5 factors of well-spoken speech you talked about, that can really help you to eliminate or reduce any kind of conflict, because you're allowing that person's mind to gradually adjust, because their mind doesn't understand impermanence. Their mind isn't practicing. So you giving them that time to adjust, it's working for you, right?
That's exactly right. That's how I think about it. I need to allow the other person time to process it. Mm-hmm. That's how I think about it.
Very good. And based on everything that you needed to do over building up your practice over the last 2 years, what advice would you give to some new students who are maybe just starting out, or even people who are on the path, but they're just not experiencing certain results? What advice would you give them in order to help them either start their journey and get moving on the path, or somebody who's been on the path but hasn't really seen results?
Them, I would say, just stick it out and go with it. Same thing I would tell a white belt that came into the gym. You gotta actually do it to get better. But the thing is, just like in jiu-jitsu, the path to enlightenment, I think, is very similar. In martial arts and jiu-jitsu, you're gonna get good just by showing up. It doesn't matter how athletic you are or what have you. If you go to the class and do it, you're gonna make progress. You're gonna get good. You can't not get good at jiu-jitsu if you show up. And I think this is very similar. You might not pick up everything right away, but if you just come to class, you read the book, you do it like you say, Teacher David, like an IV drip. Just trickle these teachings in a little bit at a time. Don't try to rush it, and you're gonna grasp these teachings. It's the same thing as jiu-jitsu. It's very similar, like I said. You're gonna just by coming, you're gonna get good at it. Now, something else I'd like to share with someone just starting out on the path. A lot of people struggle with meditation. And I think that's because the unenlightened mind comes up with excuses of no, let's do the dishes instead. Oh, wait, you got to go do that. That's what the unenlightened mind does. It's very tricky and it's subtle. So I noticed, at least when I was first starting out, I'm like, all right, I got to go meditate. That's what I would think. But then the mind would come up with, a dozen different reasons of why not to. Oh, let's do this instead. Oh, wait, we got to get that done. Oh, whatever it is. So for my practice, what I've done is I look at meditation like brushing your teeth. Brushing my teeth is one of the first things I do in the morning when I wake up. And it's one of the last things I do before I go to bed. So I just kind of slid meditation into that routine. So right when I wake up, it's the first thing I do. Besides maybe emptying the bladder, because you don't want to sit there in meditation having to go to the bathroom. That's something you would you want to make yourself comfortable for meditation. So one of the first things I do is meditate right when I wake up, and it's the last thing I do before I go to bed, just like brushing my teeth. That's how I think about it. And if there's time in the middle of the day, like if I don't have my son that day, I can usually get a third meditation in the middle of the day. So that meets the criteria of the suggestion that you have for everyone. Meditate 2 to 3 times a day for at least 30 minutes or more per session.
Over what period of time would you say that you've been doing that? About 2 sessions or 3 sessions? Has it been 3 months? Has it been 6 months? What amount of time has it been, and where did you start noticing benefits?
Okay. Well, in 2019, I started meditating, but I had like the music on and I was doing it just once in a while. You know, maybe I was working up to maybe once a day for 10 minutes or something, 15 minutes. That was 2019. I had the mantras going, meditation music, the YouTube station on, what have you. But then one of our first Zoom sessions I had with you in 2020 somewhere, I started, I asked you about meditation, or it came out in our discussion that, I have the music on or the solfeggio frequencies, that sort of thing. And then you said to me, Nick, the Buddha just meditated with 3 things. That's all you need: the mind, body, and the breath. So you got to let that go. So I did. Right when you said, to do that, I kind of scratched my head and I'm like, I don't know about that. But I tried it without it, and it's been great ever since. So I've been doing that the right way for almost 2 years now. So we're in 2022, so maybe 2 years, up to 2 years.
So you've been meditating pretty consistently twice a day for close to 2 years.
I would say so. Nice. Yes, sir.
And at what point did you start noticing benefits?
Oh, pretty much right away. Things that used to upset me wouldn't upset me anymore. I noticed that right away. So I'm like, oh, this is great. I should keep doing it. But I stuck with meditation because the mind, and it went through strange things. And I kind of thought they were cool, when it happened, like my head feeling like it was expanding, or like something was pulling up my the brain through like the sky, just like different sensations. And I think that was the mind, making its changes. Different visuals. So it was all a very cool experience.
Very nice. Well, thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions for Nick, or would anybody else like to share?
Yes, sir. I think I have a question for Nick. Well, Nick, first, thank you for sharing your experience. As you know, I'm single, so I'm curious to ask you about whether, do you have challenges? Do you find it challenging to practice these teachings in a family that does not practice the teachings? If your family doesn't practice these teachings?
I would say at first probably I did. When I first found these teachings, I wanted everybody to, come see these teachings, like standing on a mountaintop. Hey, come on up here. Hey, look at this. Look what I found, these sorts of things, everybody, tried to share it with everybody, because I was like, wow, this is what I've been looking for my whole life. I finally get some relief, or this is it. I've been, the questions of, men for thousands of years or however long, men and women, everybody. But with time, I kind of gave up the craving, or as the Buddha says it, the craving and worry for the world. I kind of look at everybody as they're all on the path, With everybody, whether they're active or not, that's a different story. Where I think we're all on the path to enlightenment, and I kind of learned to do as Teacher David taught me in Thai. The phrase is "bara-mi," which is kind of like lead by example. People see you doing so well, and then they start to be like, "Hey, what's that Nick's doing over there?" They start copying you. And that's how, you can kind of spread your light by doing and just showing and living like the right way. People will kind of mimic that. So instead of me trying to like force other people to do it, I just kind of look at it like that, leading by example, and, let them see how well things are going for you, and then, they'll latch on. So For me, I just do the practice in front of everybody, and I think they get benefits too. So they, whether they know it or not, they've incorporated some of these teachings in their lives. I know the kids found the universal truth of impermanence to be extremely helpful. So I kind of like share things like that with them, the natural law of karma and impermanence. And they verified those things are true. So that like little things like that, even though they're not studying with the book open or whatever, they know a little bit, they get a little bit rubs off on them. So I would say at first it was very difficult, but for me, my family is extremely supportive, so it hasn't been too difficult.
Out of everything that you've experienced so far with the Buddhist teachings, what's been the most difficult for you to learn and practice?
The most difficult for me, I would say, would be right concentration. Even though I have the ability to concentrate, in a like learning setting or instruction setting, I think there's different levels of it, and the restlessness piece has been the most difficult. Like the singleness of mind, that part. Like driving, the mind, tends to like wander, or it tends to not really wander, it tends to try to figure things out that are going on in the near future, or like, oh, maybe I should do this or that. And it does that all day. So I constantly have to pull it back, when I catch it. And I'm trying to bring it back to the middle so I can practice singleness of mind. But that has been the most difficult. It's every day, it seems like I have to work on it.
Very well. Very good. All right, Bassam, back to you.
Yes, sure. Nick now shared or said that he felt that this is exactly what I was looking for or searching for from years and years. Is it a common experience that one, after experiencing the results of these teachings, feels that I spent many years looking for these teachings and now I have them? I mean, from my experience, they were like, these are exactly, perfectly how things should be. So I'm not sure if this is something I experienced it, or this is a common experience for practitioners.
Yeah, what Nick was talking about, where once he finally started understanding the teachings even just a little bit and started noticing some of the improvements, he wanted to go on the top of the mountaintop and scream at the top of his lungs and, everybody come, I've found it, come on, oh my goodness. That's like a common thing that we all experience, because it's like your mind takes these breaths. It's like it's almost been suffocating for all these years, and finally you get some air and you're like, oh my goodness, I found the air, come over here. Like many people have that experience because you've got that loving kindness and compassion there, and it's not yet in the middle. So there's this craving to help everybody. So when we discover these teachings, oftentimes people want to run out and tell everybody about them and get everybody on board. And then we realize over a number of months that that's not how it works. And that's going to just continue to cause discontentedness for us because of our own craving. So we have to temper that and bring it into the middle. The other thing that can happen in addition to that, or instead of that, is someone can find out about enlightenment and start to understand what it is, peaceful, calm, serene, content mind with joy. And there can be this craving for enlightenment. So your own craving to get to enlightenment and your own craving for everyone else to get to enlightenment. These two things oftentimes go hand in hand at the very beginning when you start first understanding the teachings and you start observing some very beginning progress. That this is a very common thing that I see with practitioners who are just starting out, and it can take some time, and sometimes people, even, they might be 6 months into it or a year into it before that slowly subsides. But it can also sometimes be self-defeating too, where someone has so much craving for enlightenment, and in the first 3 months, 6 months, a year, they still haven't extinguished that. And they want enlightenment so badly, and they don't have it. And every time their mind gets discontent, they get discontent because they're discontent, because they've heard about this thing that's new to them, enlightenment, this peaceful, calm, serene, content mind with joy, and now they start craving it really badly, and they think that I should be able to get it right now. So 2 months, 3 months, 6 months into it, they're really wanting that really badly, and then every little misstep or every little discontentedness is compounded, because not only are they, maybe, let's just make something simple, let's just say they're craving a new car and they can't get that new car, so now they're angry. But now, because they're angry, they know that they're not enlightened, so they get discontent because they're craving the car and they're craving enlightenment, and now they become even more discontent. And I've actually seen students that have turned away from the path because they still have this craving for enlightenment that never got extinguished, and they just get themselves so frustrated because they keep getting frustrated that they're frustrated, or they get angry because they're frustrated, or they experience boredom, so they get angry because they are still feeling boredom, and they're only 3 months or 6 months into the path, and they're expecting results to get to that enlightened mind, right away, rather than realizing it's a gradual progression to enlightenment. So these are two common things: either craving your own enlightenment and or craving other people to be on the path with you. And then because people don't come onto the path with you, sometimes people give up on the path that way too, because they're still attached to their spouse or their life partner or their children. And because their children or their life partner isn't getting onto the path with them, they want to do it with them, and their attachment to their family members are stronger than their own interest to continue on their own and actually experience enlightenment. So these things are always, struggling. This is why I call it a log jam. That, oftentimes we have this log jam in the mind, and we got to start pulling out these logs and start getting everything shifting and flowing better. But sometimes that log jam is so tight, people aren't willing to pull those logs out because it's very scary for them to maybe do something on their own, like the path to enlightenment. They're so used to doing things with their life partner or their children that they just can't commit to doing something on their own. They're too attached to other people.
Well, now I remembered again your question when you asked what were the most difficult parts of practicing these teachings. Well, I need to add one more thing, that sometimes when eliminating this craving only needs one's personal work, I'm not sure how to say this, if it's only a work that I need to do alone, while no one is seeing me and no one is judging me, this is easier. But some things or some work one needs to do while expecting that others will be judging us. In this case, it was really challenging. I mean, sometimes I thought that it would be easier for me to attend, let's say about this class. It was easier to attend the classes on Facebook or YouTube rather than being here on Zoom, sharing my camera and opening my mic, talking in front of others. It was really a challenge. Taking this step was one of the challenges I had.
And now that you've done that, what's it been like for you?
Theoretically, if there's a chance to go back and take this decision from day one, of course, I will do so.
So has being in Zoom and being a moderator and opening up your camera helped you get over any kind of shyness or any kind of fear of being judged by others, or letting go of the self? Has it helped you with those things?
Yes, at the first 2-3 months of assisting in these classes as moderation, I used to feel pain in the heart after the class is ended. I mean, the fears were really very painful to the extent that it wasn't just a state of the mind or some feelings that the mind is experiencing. It also affected the body and the heart. So yes, it helped a lot.
So those are those bodily sensations that the Buddha talks about, right? As discontentedness is arising, you're going to experience bodily sensations. So you got pain around the heart and some other pains that's telling you something's arising, and it was fear, right? Is that what was arising?
Yes, exactly. It was fear, yeah. Fear of talking in front of others, fear of being judged, of what I'm saying, and other fears.
So if there's somebody right now that's on Facebook or YouTube that's fearful of coming into Zoom and perhaps participating, what would your advice be to them?
Number one, for sure, no one will judge you. That's number one. Number two, you have one of two decisions to make: either to still living with these fears, and of course, these fears day after day will be more and more, will grow. Or you have to start to take step one, step two, step three, and so on. The benefits by yourself. So just go ahead and do it now if you are able to do this.
So they have to confront their fear, right?
Yeah.
By actually doing it, go do the thing that your mind doesn't want you to do, right? That's how you eliminate the fear, is confront it. Put the mind in that situation so that it can see that everything's okay.
Everything's okay, and the fear, the problem wasn't on people who are attending with me or people who are looking at me, if there is me, but the problem was my delusion in the mind, thinking that others will look at me and others will judge me, which I haven't seen in these classes ever.
So the mind was clinging to this self-image and this self-identity. Yep.
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right, who's next? Anybody have questions for Bossum or Nick, or somebody would like to volunteer to share?
Yes, since that Jan raising her hand, let's see the prayer.
Thank you, Bossum. I want to start off by just telling you how much I admire you, Bossum, and also you, Nick, right? You're so kind and you're so caring when you moderate and help everyone. It's wonderful. You create a wonderful space with a wonderful presence. And I admire you also for embarking on this path when you did in your life. It took me a lot longer. And I think you've made a wise and an amazing decision where you are in your life. I'm quite a bit older than you are, right? I think most people here. So I want to express my appreciation of you and my gratitude for all that you do for us. You as well, Teacher David. It's been wonderful experience learning with you and the support that you offer. If anybody has not yet had a personal guidance session with Teacher David, I would recommend that you try it. From the very first moment I talked to you, I was so impressed with how caring you are, how non-judgmental you were, how understanding you were, how encouraging you were, and it's just continued right along. I think I started after some very difficult experiences in my life. I had open heart surgery to repair some heart defects, and I died, and they brought me back to life. That was a life-changing experience to go through. It took several years for me to recover from that. And then my father became very ill, and I took care of him for a year and a half, and he died. And then my mother became very ill, and I took care of her for a year, and she died. And so those things all happened in succession. It was quite a life-changing experience to go through all of that. And after things kind of settled after my mother died, I thought, I need to find a serious new way to live my life. You know, when I say serious, I need to find a new way to approach my life. Okay? There's so many things that were stressful, frightening, confusing that happened. And I have a number of friends who are Thai, who are Khmer from Cambodia. So they started saying, okay, come with us, come with us. They go to the temple, Thai temple, and there's a Khmer temple, but it's all Thai monks. So I started regularly going to the temple with them, but I didn't understand most of what was happening because it was all in Thai, or it was all in Cambodian language, Khmer, right? And I was constantly having to say, what does that mean? What are we doing now? Right? So it was really, I don't know how I discovered daily wisdom, walking the path with the Buddha. I must have been doing a search, but I honestly don't remember what happened, right? That I found I was like, oh, meditation class. Oh, the teacher can speak English. I should try this. So that's kind of what got me started. And I think I've had amazing transformation to me in a relatively short time. I only started coming to the classes in December and started meditating in December. So I don't know what that's been. It's like a half a year, right? But I've talked to Teacher David about this. I grew up in a family that had a lot of anger, and a lot of interactions were based in anger, ill will, kind of conceit, and arrogance. And so I grew up with that, and that my family continues to express themselves that way. So I have these sort of deep-seated habits of responding in that way as well to things when I'm uncomfortable or lash out. And that seems to have evaporated. I understand because of impermanence, it may come back. It no doubt will in times when I'm stressed. But I'll tell you a little story. So I live in Boston, Massachusetts. We're noted to be the worst drivers in the United States. And people drive crazy here. So when you're driving, it's really common for people to cut you off, flip you the bird, roll down their window and swear at you. I've had people throw cans of Coca-Cola at my car, throw them at my windshield. It's just nuts, right? It's very unpredictable. And I used to get out of the car sometimes and I would just be like, oh, what just happened? There was one day in particular where we were stopped at a red light and a man ran up and tried to get into my car on the passenger side. So I looked over and behind him was a police officer pointing a gun right at me. And I went down on the seat. It was shocking, right? But there's road rage and people get murdered for no reason. It doesn't happen every day, but it happens. So I used to get out of my car and I would just be, some days I would just be like, kind of very difficult to go on with the day. And now I am in the middle. Those things don't bother me. I feel like, okay, we're all in a stream, go around me and it's fine. We just keep going and it's okay. And I feel that way about many things that happen now, that it's okay, it's fine. I'm happy, I stay happy while it's happening. I stay happy after it's happened. It's such a big change for me, such a big transformation for me. I feel like I'm giving testimony in church or something right now, but it's been a really amazing change for me in my life. So, maybe I'll stop there. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you to everybody. Okay, one more thing. This group is so supportive, and it's such a treat to work with everybody when we have class each week. So thank you, everyone.
Great, Jan. What was it that originally brought you to the teachings of the Buddha?
I think it was my friends who grew up with the tradition. They knew what I'd gone through, and they were like, you should come to the temple. The monks can help you. You can learn to meditate. This will help you.
Okay.
And I've known them. I respect them. I've known them for a long, long time. One of my friends was he was actually a boy soldier in the Khmer Rouge in the 1970s in Cambodia, and he's now the most amazing person that I know, and his family in particular. They're so wonderful, kind-hearted. They lived through the killing fields. They were almost starved to death, and they're the happiest, most loving people that I know. So, knowing them, I felt a lot of confidence that, okay, if they can live through what they've gone through, and they are so resilient and loving, and I believe them, I'll try this too, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's what started it.
So you've been learning now for 6 months, and you're already noticing improvements, it sounds like.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. At what point did you start noticing improvements from the time you started first learning? How long did it take before you started noticing improvements?
Well, the first thing was, I remember talking with you about this. I had these music soundtracks playing in my head constantly that I didn't want to be playing in my head. And after 3 weeks of learning to meditate, I was able to cut it off, and then no more music soundtrack in my head. But it took a while for me to start feeling more like not angry. I had to do a lot of loving kindness meditation. I think for a month I did that loving kindness meditation 3 times a day. And now I kind of do it once a day, I'd say. It took about maybe 3 or 4 months for me to start feeling really happy.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And does anyone else have any questions for Jan? I have some more, but I thought I would open things up to other people first.
Not same question for now, teacher.
Okay. So Jan, since you're fairly new and studying just 6 months, for anybody who's now just recently started, maybe in the last month or the last couple of weeks or the last 2 months, what would you recommend for them?
Do the Wednesday meditation class if you at all can, or watch it on video. I for a while I did the Wednesday class, and then I would watch it again on the video on YouTube the next evening, that evening, and I would do that multiple times each day because it helped me just to hear you talk us through the meditation. So that helped a lot, and meditating 2 times a day at first helped a lot. There was a little hump to get over, trying to be able to concentrate on my breath, in my nose. That took me a little while for that to sort of click and make sense, but keep going, keep doing that, and read the books, little short bits, multiple times, and then it helps me to come to this class. And it also helps me, I take walks and I just think through things, like trying to explain things to myself to see if I'm understanding them or not, or where I have a question. So that helps me a lot.
I know that you've just recently started doing not only the group learning program, but also the Pali, Canon, and English study group. What's that been like, doing both programs at one time?
I'm finding it really illuminating because it helps me to check what I'm understanding, what I don't understand, or where I sort of understand this, but I don't. Reading the words of the Buddha, that is really interesting. It's like extra depth. You know, you're a wonderful teacher, and then there's this sort of extra layer of it that reinforces what we've talked about and what's in the first book. And
Okay. And has the teachings helped you in your practice, helped you in any of your relationships, in your job or in your personal relationships?
yeah, I think very much. I think that my husband's wonderful, but I think we have a more harmonious relationship now. I think I'm able to, because I grew up with all of this kind of like angry way of addressing people. I wasn't as vigilant about how I was speaking to him, and I've been able to clean that up quite a lot. You know, I ask him, have you noticed any changes? He's like, oh yeah, you're a lot easier to live with now. So he's confirming that, you're better now. And I think at work, I've always been able to be professional at work, but I think that it's allowed me to understand better dynamics around me and think more carefully about how to respond to them.
Okay.
We've had some dialogue about that as well in the personal guidance sessions, right? So that's been really helpful to be able to step back and think like, okay, what's the right thing to say? To who should I say it? When should I say it? Right? What would be the outcome if I say this or say that instead of just responding immediately? It's kind of, Nick, what you were talking about reminded me of that too. I learned to just wait a little bit and, be more careful about how you're talking to people.
Mm-hmm. And what's been the most difficult so far, and how did you overcome, or have you even overcome those difficulties yet?
Oh, I think I'm going to be working on this ill will and like conceit and arrogance and the anger for a long time. It's diminishing, I think, and I don't know when it'll go away. Right? But that's been my big challenge, I think. That and my love of eating too much. So that's getting better too.
What do you do when you notice the ill will or the conceit arising?
Well, one thing that's really helpful for me is I think about how I feel during the loving kindness meditation. When I'm feeling this sort of, do no harm, may all people be well, may all be peaceful. That really helps me to just bring that into my mind before I think or say or react or do anything else. Right? That and the factors of, of wholesome speech, thinking about that before I react to people.
Okay.
Right? But to be able to just bring up the kind of feeling of let's have compassion, let's love. Let's let that guide everything that happens.
Very nice. Well, it's nice to hear that you're making progress so readily and early on like this.
Thank you. Thank you for everything.
You're welcome.
Well, it seems that one more benefit that motivates one to practice these teachings is seeing that these teachings works for most likely anyone and everyone in any place. It makes people's life better and better. And this is, I think, for some people is maybe their number one goal in life, to see others living a better life.
Yeah, if we're willing to do the work, we'll experience the results. And this is one of the things that we do in the unenlightened state is we think that everyone else is the problem. Back to what Nick was talking about with right view. is that when we have wrong view, we think everyone else is the problem and we try to fix everyone else, and our life doesn't get any better. And we just get madder and more angry because we're just trying to fix everyone else, thinking everyone else is the problem. But when we have that breakthrough and we get to right view and we realize that all the problems are in our own mind, then we can focus on the real problem, and that's where we start seeing the real benefits and the real improvements. It's quite amazing how that works.
Yeah, well, working with students, I think this is something common between Jan and I. So I am curious to ask her if she have noticed any improvements in her students. I mean, the progress she has made in her life. Do you think this also had a positive impact on your students?
I do, Blossom. I'll tell you, I have a son, he's 32 now. Having a child of my own helped me be a better teacher, because I learned to teach as if every child was my child. My child had a lot of issues, problems, and so I could see in every child that I teach my own son, right? Or parents, I could see myself. But I think I work now with college students, adults. I've become more tolerant, I like to think just more understanding. It's common in colleges for the faculty to complain about things. And the same things come up over and over again. Oh, I worked so hard to prepare these lessons and the students aren't using them, right? Or the students aren't sending their work in on time, or, but I think it helped me to be a better listener and really listen and pay attention to what's going on with students, especially in the past few years, where there's COVID and a parent died, a family member died, a brother died, a sister died, and really become more understanding of the situations that our students are living through. I think when I was younger, maybe I would have been more callous about that and thought about myself and how I was being inconvenienced before I thought about the students. But I think it's flipped. And now I think about them first. So I think, yes, it's definitely helped. I'm curious, what about you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see this. When students have an angry and stressed and anxious teacher, most likely they learn this. They imitate or mimic their teacher, which will have also a negative impact on their behavior and maybe their behavior outside of school. So the opposite will happen when a teacher is practicing these teachings. So I'm not sure if I think Teacher David shared this with me before, that it works like rings. So it's not only the practitioner who get the benefits, but also the people around the practitioner also can see and observe and experience some improvements in their life.
You made me realize just now, my students come to me and tell me things that they don't tell their other instructors. They confide in me and feel that they trust that things will be well when we talk.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Jen.
You as well, thank you.
Well, it seems that Tricia has her hand raised. Let's go to her.
Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing today? I am normally never on Zoom. I'm normally on Facebook or on YouTube. But Bassam, I heard you talking. You're like, oh, I was shy and I didn't want to talk. And I was like, yeah, let me talk. So I was like, okay, I'm normally on YouTube and Zoom, and I might drop a question here or there, but I'm normally a person that likes to be in the background and I hate the foreground. But I wanted to say that I started learning about a year and a half ago, probably almost 2 years now with David. And David, I say this with the utmost respect because it has nothing to do with you. It's all about how I was raised in America and being African American woman in America. And I saw your videos for a really long time. And I was like, I'm not going to study with him. First of all, he's a man. Second of all, he's white. And there's no way he could relate to how I'm feeling and what I want to practice. So I'm just not going to give him a chance. So I went ahead and I struggled through trying to figure out how to do this practice by myself for about a year with no progress. And I was like, this is not working. I really don't understand what I'm supposed to be doing here, how often I'm supposed to be meditating, what I'm supposed to be reading. And none of it made sense. Just all was just a mixture of space and time. And I was like, this makes no sense. So I said, you know what? The starting of the session was coming up. What you're doing now. I was like, okay, I'll just drop in a class and see. But I think I sent you a message first to ask about who you are as a teacher, David, because I was still very skeptical. And I was like, okay, let me ask him who he is. And you sent me the video of you telling him about the teacher. I was like, okay, he seems okay. Let me try it. And then I tried it. And I think I made my first appointment with you. And I was like, okay, he seems like a nice guy. It seems like I'm learning some stuff. And I'm still skeptical, but I'm going to go ahead and keep going. And I have. And I've definitely ran into some pitfalls and some difficulties. And I'm always texting or asking for guidance. And it was just a great lesson in how very polluted my mind was about like not giving people the opportunity to help, even if they don't look like you or they don't have the representation that you would like them to.
All right, Tricia. So you is that everything? Did you have more to share?
I don't know. I guess that's everything. I'm pretty quick.
Okay. So Tricia has shared this with me multiple times. So I've heard this from her before. So that's nice that you're sharing it publicly now that you had these judgments, right? This is conceit. This is arrogance. This is judging other people, and you broke through that and experienced the results of having done so. Are you noticing that now that you've had this experience where you gradually eliminated judgment of me, that you're now doing that less in other parts of your life?
Oh, absolutely. I would say before practicing with you, I would not say that I was a judgmental person. I wouldn't have thought of myself in that light. I would have thought of myself as I'm an amazing person.
That's the arrogance.
I'm very sensitive to others' feelings. But I was not. I was extremely judgmental. And, working with you and learning the Buddha's teachings have really put a mirror up to myself where I had to be very honest. And I had to look in that mirror and say, you've got a lot going on and you need to really fix that. So I work really hard. Anytime I feel myself even starting to react to something that someone else is doing, I immediately try to pull my mind back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I can share this, Tricia, is that probably the first 8 months to 12 months, Tricia was learning one-on-one. It was just her scheduling Zoom appointments and her and I talking. And then probably in the last 6 months to a year, she's starting to, be involved in these group learning programs. So that's like a step forward for you. And now coming into Zoom, this is another step forward for you, right?
Yes, definitely. Like I said, I like to just watch on YouTube or Facebook when it's live, and I'll just, watch. Maybe I have a question, I'll just drop a question in, but I'm not a big person that likes to get on Zoom and be involved in that way.
So what are some things that you would share with somebody who's just starting out on the path?
Patience is a virtue.
Mm-hmm.
So to be very, very patient with this process. David is absolutely right when he said that, some people get really tied up in trying to get to this enlightenment thing when you first start out, and you're like, oh, I'm not getting there. What's the problem? I'm doing this thing and I'm not getting there. Because I was definitely one of those people. Nick is also very right about finding these teachings and want to shout it from the rooftop. Come on, everybody, come on with me. This is amazing. And then when nobody wants to come, you're like, that's your problem. See, you missing out. And then you get really tied up in these two things when you should really just be focusing on yourself. So that's the biggest thing I would want to share with people that are just starting out, is to learn to just focus on your own practice, and that everything in time.
Very well. And what's been the most difficult for you so far?
I would say the most difficult is definitely focusing on my own practice, because I'm a people person, and my profession is also, I'm a social worker, so I'm always involved in people's lives in a way that I try to help them fix it, right? So me just trying to focus on just my own thing is very difficult, because I want to be able to fix the thing, whatever it is. I want to, I can fix it. Oh, you need to go do this and it'll fix it. So that has been one of my biggest challenges, is to just stay focused on my own practice and realizing that I can't fix people. I can't.
Have you had any aha moments where things just seem to really click and, it really helped you to see more clearly how to move forward, or certain aspects of your life of things that just clicked for you that were real aha moments?
Yes, I would say definitely with my meditation, that meditation actually does work. I used to think way before you, David, and way before this practice, that everybody that meditate, I was like, what do they do? Why would you just sit in one place for however long and just sit there with your eyes closed? I was like, that is so ridiculous. I don't see how anyone can benefit from doing anything like that. And then when I started doing it and doing it consistently, I was like, oh, wow, this actually works. This is brilliant. I enjoy it. And it's actually made so much improvement in my life, especially when I'm getting frustrated. I can remember to breathe and relax, and then I can proceed. And that's all from a meditation practice, because it slows, the mind down.
Have you ever had any time since you started learning that you felt like you wanted to give up? And if so, what did you do to overcome that?
I have had many times that I wanted to give up. Many. I would definitely say yes. I've gotten to a place where I was just like, this is just not working. What am I doing? I feel ridiculous. But my wife, and she doesn't practice. So every time I feel myself going, you know what, this is just not working for me. I'm just not getting to that enlightenment thing that David keeps talking about. And I'm just going to stop. I cannot be bothered. My wife would step in and say, don't you dare. You're doing so good. Don't you stop. You're doing so well. And I'm like, well, if she's seeing the improvement, then I must be doing something right. And I would continue. So also talking with you, David, sometimes I would get really, frustrated and want to just stop. And I either schedule an appointment with you and you'll say something that will help me to continue.
Yeah, I think one of the lines I said is, what are you going to do? Go back to being angry?
And I'm like, no, that's no fun. I guess I'll continue.
Yeah, very good. All right. Does anyone have any question for Tricia?
Yes, teacher. Well, Tricia, first of all, my apologies. I think I many times pronounced your name as Tricia, not Tricia. So if this bothered you, I'm sorry.
Awesome. As it goes to my name, I used to get really bothered because people used to not say my name correctly. At this point in my practice, it doesn't matter. I'm not attached to it anymore.
Great. One more benefit of the teachings.
See?
Yeah. Well, so my question now is, at the moment when you realized that you are not able to change others, that it's not the way things happen, was it easy for you? I mean, was it like in a snap of a finger and you just got the wisdom and realized that, okay, from now on, I'm not gonna try or attempt to change others? Or you had to apply effort to keep the mind content while seeing others maybe causing themselves some discontentedness, but we are not able to change others or to force others to improve their lives.
I really wish it was a snap of the finger, but absolutely not a snap. I mean, I still struggle with it now because, I'm not enlightened, but I still struggle with it now, but I do much better at saying, if that is going to make you feel happy and well, then that's what you need to do for yourself. And just try my very best not to be discontent with whatever somebody chooses for themselves. So it's still a struggle, especially with family members, because I'm still attached to them, right? And but it's easier. It's not as it was when I wasn't practicing, where I would say something or give them some piece of advice and they do the total opposite. And then they'll come back to me and they'll say, well, I didn't buy those shoes you told me to buy and now my toe hurts. And I'm like, see, I told you about that. You should have did what I said. And I look at your toe, right? Now it's just like, well, you tried the other shoe. You can maybe try some other shoes and see whichever works for you and try not to be attached to whatever their decision is.
Yeah, I see. Thanks for this.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm not sure if Marcy lowered her hand or... okay, yeah. Well, so I'm seeing some question, teacher, on Facebook, I think. If there is no more one is interested to share their experience with the teachings.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Do whatever you'd like to do, Bassam.
Okay, so let's go, Nick.
Thank you, Bassam. Yes, teacher, as Bassam was informing you, and it was actually Tricia, she had a question on Facebook. It's, besides the things she shared, this is a generic question, if that's okay.
Sure.
She asks, when I started practicing, I encountered a lot of the teachings that were reworded for modern day, i.e. language. Can the Buddha's teachings be reworded for modern day and still have the same impact? Example, the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path.
Yeah, so what I've done in terms of the teachings is the Four Noble Truths. I share what the Buddhist teachings are on the Four Noble Truths. I put his words in the book so that you can see what did he teach on the Four Noble Truths. But then in the very first book, in volume 1, I have come up with a way that explains the Four Noble Truths in a very basic way to help a student get to establishing right view very early on. Because the way that I see the Buddhist words on the Four Noble Truths is it takes a student a while of sinking in to understand those. Today is more, kind of 3 months, 6 months, a year down the road of your path, where today, the way that I've worded them, it helps you to get it right away, or at least in a matter of weeks rather than months. So I don't see the Four Noble Truths that I share as being a rewording of the words of the Buddha, but instead a summarization in a way that helps a student establish right view more readily. And then after they practice for a while, then ultimately they're going to have to understand the Four Noble Truths in the way that the Buddha explained it, because they wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without understanding the Four Noble Truths in the way that the Buddha explained it. But at least the way that I explain it, it gets somebody started and moving in the right direction, establishing the Four Noble or establishing right view. The Eightfold Path, I haven't reworded that because the Buddha explains it perfectly well, but what I do is I help people to understand what he's sharing. So like, for example, when he talks about right mindfulness and he talks about body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, mental objects as mental objects, people don't usually know what that means and what it refers to. So he explained it the way he explained it. And his discourse on the Eightfold Path would have been his discourse on the Eightfold Path. And then he would have been helping students on the side, and he would have been having other teachings to help people explain or help people understand what it is that he was teaching. So we've got these formal discourses that he shared, but then, just like me, he would have had private discussions with students. He would have talked with 2 or 3 students here or there outside of a real formal discourse. And that's where he helped people to more deeply understand what it was that he was sharing in his formal discourses. So I'm not interested in rewording the Buddha's teachings at all. He said it, in my view, perfectly well, perfectly correct. Instead, what I'm doing is looking for those best words in terms of the translations and finding the absolute best word choices that explain what it is that he was talking about. And in a rare situation like the Four Noble Truths, explaining it in a way that somebody can get it right away. But for me, I look at the words of the Buddha as being, perfect just the way they are. And the more deeply that we understand what he was actually sharing during his lifetime, that's where you can really get it. And the light bulbs really start going off once you start learning what he actually taught. And the interesting thing is that when you first start learning his teachings, it's kind of like, whoa, you're kind of trying to wrap your mind around it because you haven't really maybe read and understood the way this Buddha spoke. But then within a few months of actually reading his teachings more and more and having somebody like me help you to understand them, eventually you get to the point where you can read what he talked about and what he said, and it makes complete sense to you. So in this book series of 13 books, you read the first book that I wrote, it's like, okay, David explains it using the words of the Buddha in some cases, but it's a lot of David's words. But by the time you get to volume 2, it's like, oh, okay, now this is the Buddha's words. And then you kind of read that, and then you kind of are like, all right, I'm kind of getting familiar with this. And then you start reading volume 3, and somewhere between volume 3 and you get into volume 4, it's almost like a best friend. It's almost like you get used to hearing this person talk and the way that they talk, the way they communicate, the way they express themselves. And by the time you get into volume 5 and the others, it's like, oh, okay, I understand how he talks now. You kind of get the rhythm of how he talks. So I'm not interested in changing his words or modifying them or updating them or anything like that, but instead ensuring that what I share that I consider to be the words of the Buddha have the most accurate word choices that can help you to understand what it is that he was saying. And then that way you can really penetrate into his teachings and understand what it is that he was communicating, so that then you can practice those teachings and experience the results.
Thank you, Teacher David. Claire, also on Facebook, she has something to share. She writes, "The Buddha's teachings have helped me greatly. I used to blame a lot of people for my unhappiness. I was living in the past and feeling hurt and victimized all the time. Once I learned and accepted that my own decisions and choices were causing my discontentment, my life has changed for the better. I started studying the Buddha and watching your program every Sunday, and I can't tell you how much happier I am today. I used to jump to conclusions, get upset easily, and suffered from depression. Since I started on the path, I feel like a new person." Then she goes on to explain some of the bara me. This is my mother. She lives in the same complex as me. She goes on to say, one of the things I mentioned there, the bara me. She saw the benefits in my life, and so she started her own path.
All right. Thank you for sharing, Claire. That's very nice that you and your son can both be learning and practicing, and you've got somebody that's really deeply committed to learning and practicing that's close to you. That's Nick. So you always have the ability to reach out to him and get advice, and me as well. So feel free to reach out. And perhaps when I come to the U.S. this summer, I'll be able to get a chance to meet you as well.
Thank you, Teacher David. At the bottom of her comment, she writes, "I look forward to meeting all of you at the retreat." So she'll be at the retreat.
Oh, wonderful. We'll get a chance to meet her there.
Yes, sir.
All right. Who else?
Yes, Marcy is ready to share her experience. Let's go to her.
Thank you, boss, and thank you, Teacher David. I'm not quite sure. I debated about sharing because I feel like I have so much, but one of the things that Teacher David was talking about the word usage. So real short, I grew up in a very traumatic childhood. I had been on all kinds of medications since my early 20s, lithium, depression, bipolar, you name it, I had it. But in 2018, something really devastational happened in my life. And I started the search because I had already tried taking my life 3 different times, and I just didn't want to live the way I was living anymore. So I took on this search to find a better way of life. And I was first introduced into the Tibetan religion, and I started studying the Lam Rim. And in the Lam Rim, it uses dukkha's translation as suffering. And for me, for someone that lived in this world of blaming everybody else, very victimized, the poor me, a lot of ill will, anger and stuff, that suffering seemed to I really connected with, like I had all this suffering. But even with that practice for, I would say probably a good, maybe almost a year of it, I realized that the rites, the rituals and stuff, I was still very cloudy. The meditation, I was feeling some relief with meditation, but I wasn't getting clarity, and I was still struggling, and I was still on all these medications. And then I became homebound and locked in my house, and I couldn't go out anywhere, and I couldn't be around people, and noises were sensitive, and I was suffering from all of this stuff. So I did search, and I searched for the words, the Pali Canon, because in this investigation, I was led to Buddha's words were taken from the Pali Canon, and that's what brought me to Teacher David. And when he opened the door to taking the word dukkha and expanding it to discontentedness, and it broadened it to a whole realm of pleasant feelings, because with that whole diagnosis of bipolar, you experience these really, really, really highs in euphoria. And then you have these really crashing depressions, which the suffering identified, but didn't really take care of those highs. So when he introduced discontentedness to me and the understanding of that, I felt as though I blossomed. I felt as though I found like a peace within me where I was able to take all of these variations of feelings and emotions that were all over the place and bring them right to the middle. And so that's what I wanted to share, is the word of discontentedness really opened the door for me to be where I am now. And had any of you met me prior, I was a very vulgar, very offensive, judgmental, played the victim role, on all kinds of medications, doing drugs, all kinds of stuff. And now in my daily life, we're here in 2002. And I think I came into seeing Teacher David the end of 20. Yeah, I think it would have been, was it the end of 20? Might have been the end of 2020. Now I go in and people come to me, they borrow me. I have experienced that. And I am now considered a ray of sunshine at work. And even that, I'm actually at work and I'm back at work and I'm involved with people and I'm speaking with people and I practice, right speech, right effort, right intention. And the other thing is I would say to anybody that is on this journey, you've just got to be diligent. Be diligent. Give yourself the opportunity to learn the teachings. Practice the meditation. Don't give up. And Teacher David is amazing. His one-on-one sessions, you just reach out to him, and I like it because I've never had really I've been in therapy. I can't tell you how many years I've been in therapy, but I've never had anybody been frank. So Marcy, you're seeing that what you're having right now is discontentedness, right? This is your attachment to either your dog or whatever. And that frankness was great. And it was in a loving, kind way. So that is what I want to share. Thank you so much, Teacher David. And thank you all as well.
Would you be interested to share with us some advice for people that are just getting started? In addition to what you've already said about diligence, do you have any other suggestions of what people should be thinking about and some maybe early obstacles that you encountered that you overcome and how you overcame those?
I would say that gaining the right view, understanding and losing that victim role or that blame role or that, pointing the finger or looking to the outside is really important, because once you can realize that just because whatever happens on the outside doesn't mean that that's how you should be reacting. And I guess that's what a good thing is. I was never responsive to anything. I was always very reactive to things. But once I turned that right view and saw that I have the control over my discontented mind, not this person who's driving, erratically, or, Boston. I laughed at that because I'm in Rhode Island, so I know. But I started to see things that before I'd have a hair trigger on and I'd be like, oh, ready to go. I was going to throw down gloves and we were going to brawl it right here. Now I look at it and I see, and I'm like, I kind of giggle at myself. Marcy, you must look like such a maniac out in the middle of the street screaming at these people ready to throw down. And now it's just kind of they're obviously suffering from some kind of discontentedness, and I wish them, I hope your day gets better, and I let it go. So right view. And then the other thing with me was right speech. Again, I used to be very aggressive in my language with people, and my way was the highway, and I knew it all, and this is how it is, and I've been through so much, so you can't tell me. And I was just very, very, and I realized the moment I really started practicing right speech in the moral conduct, I noticed that the people around me, the family around me, it just changed. It was such, and like I said, now I get called the ray of sunshine. I was never a ray of sunshine. Let me tell you, in my early life, it was not something that was identified as me. So I would say that, right view, important, and then right speech, because I feel like speech is so a lot of people feel they have the free will to say whatever they want to whoever they want, however they want. And that's, to me, I've learned that that's just not practicing correctly. That's not right. So right view, right speech, and be very diligent and give yourself patience and time to practice meditation. I mean, I was doing like a 5-minute meditation. And I thought like I had just, did an hour, and it wasn't even an hour, it was 5 minutes, you know what I mean? So it was just keep trying, and I would, do 5, and I'd get up and I'd be like, that wasn't long enough, Marcy. You got to have effort. You got to have diligence. I'd go do something, whether it would take my dog for a walk or whatever. Then I come back and I try it again, and I try it again. And there was times that I was like trying to meditate and probably 10 to 15 times a day just to try it again, like 5 or 10 minutes in, because my mind was so like, ooh. But yes, that would be my recommendation. That would be my recommendation.
And based on what you know now, what are the next things that you need to be working on?
Now I am working on being, the shout it from the rooftop, like, hey, everybody, like, if you really want to be free from your unhappiness, this is where you need to be. So I'm kind of trying to work on that and draw some more of just in and not try to tell everybody, I feel very wanting to push that, but also just slow it down. I'm not in a race. There's not a rush for anything. Take it moment by moment, in the present moment, enjoy what's in front of me, and not worry about past or worry about the future. Just really be present. That's where I'm really working.
Okay, very good. Thank you for sharing, Marcy. You're a ray of sunshine, huh? Those are some very nice words to hear at work, I bet. All right, who's next? Did we lose Bossum?
Let's go to Denise, Teacher David. She has her hand raised.
Sure.
Unmute, okay, and video. For some reason, it's not doing it. Impermanence. Okay.
There you
are. Yes. So for me, I was curious about when I first started on the journey I was curious. I was raised Christian, so nothing Buddhism, nothing anything else. So I saw a book and I was very curious about it. And so I decided that I'm still more curious. So I started to find out, and I started off with Tibetan Buddhism. That's, where my start, and all the rituals and everything. And I would do the rituals and the, all the taras and the chanting and everything in the altar. And I would meditate too, but I really was still struggling. I think that's the thing. I was still struggling with the feelings of craving, the anger, just not feeling like I belonged, just a whole bunch of stuff. My mind was just always racing. And so I could not tell you really how I happened upon your Facebook group, the Buddhist walking, the walking with the Buddhist on the Buddhist path. I do not know. I just did, and I'm like, okay, let me see, let me give it a try. And so I still struggle because I still struggle, but the thing is, I don't stay there. I mean, I notice, oh, okay, you're feeling discontent. Okay, why? Okay, instead of worrying about if I go to the store, because that was a big thing for me. It's like just going to the store and being around a lot of people and like, oh, are they thinking this way about me and that? And it's like, no, focus, stay with, even though it makes you feel uncomfortable, be present. And yeah, I'm getting better on that. So I'm getting more content to whatever situation it is.
What's your meditation practice like now, Denise?
Oh, it's getting better. I'm trying. I got to two sessions. I'm working on. Sometimes I can get to 3. Not as long as I need to. I'm thinking, oh, it's been a long. I'm spending I did 30 minutes, and I realized no. So I have had to have like a timer, because I think it's longer and it's not. And then I realized no, and I really need it just for now. I mean, it's so to keep me honest. Mm-hmm. Because I do think, oh, wow, and I want to go do something else. It's like, oh, this needs to be done. And it's like, no, sit down, stay there, even though sometimes it can be like my mind is racing here and racing there. And I'm like, I can't meditate. I stay. I keep myself on the cushion. And I do notice that for me, how I react to people now is different, because I don't have that feeling like, oh, I've got to be right. Oh, I've got to be, I've got to tell them this. And, even for myself, it's like, oh, it's their fault. No. It's how I react to things and how it's what I bring to the table. So I'm able to like, okay, I'm not thinking clearly. It wasn't correct speech, so. And also attachment. We've talked about this, Teacher David, is me and my cats and attachment. And Sunday night, there was a lost cat, and I took it in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna, I'm finding a home for this cat, because and I searched everywhere. I put up flyers in places that I wouldn't have ever thought that I could go. I mean, I just didn't feel comfortable. It's just around the corner, but I just didn't feel like, what do these people think? Whatever. I didn't even think about that. I'm like, this is something that needs to be done. It's the right thing. It's to find this cat's owners. It's the right thing to do. So, and I put up flyers, and I, discovered a whole bunch of internet things. And so the people found, and I got attached to this animal. I mean, I was really attached, so I was going to keep it. And then I'm like, no, it's not the right thing. Try harder. And then I found the cat parents called me, and they said, we think you have our animal. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, prove it to me. Do this, And then I'm like, that's not right. The right thing is they have a picture. They show the animal. I mean, and I told them to come over. So they got the animal, and it was discontentment because I had gotten attached, and I'm like, wow, I've been practicing not attachment with my own animals, and here I am still attached. So, and we talked about it. So I do, that's the area that I have to work on more, is not only attachment to other people, but just attachment to mostly to my animals, or to any animals. So, but I was able to recognize, but I wouldn't have recognized that before.
Yeah, learning how to love without attachment is so key. Learning how to have a relationship but not be attached to the being, whether it's an animal or a human. That's very challenging for the mind, but with practice, I'm sure you'll get it.
Yeah. But it was nice to be able to say, okay, do the right thing. I mean, because I want to cling. I want to say, oh, I'm keeping him, even, and then it's like, but no, it wouldn't have been the right thing. And it wouldn't have, so I was even feeling the discontentment of it, let it go. And, that's, was new. I mean, not so much new, but it was to understand, okay, you're feeling discontent instead of just saying, oh, what, you shouldn't be feeling this. So it was discontentment. It's workable, I mean, I can, it's something I can work through. I can give myself some chance, give myself some space, breathe through it, work through it. It's not gonna, everything's emotion and everything, or the discontentment, the craving, it's not gonna evaporate. Like, it's something that I have to constantly work on. But, that's where it is.
Good for you, Denise. Sounds like you made some really good decisions there.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Teacher David.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Does anybody have any questions for Denise? All right. Looks like we lost Bossum, but Nick's still around. So, Marcy's got her hand up. Was that for Denise? Yep. Okay.
So Denise, and it's actually kind of not even a question, but I actually, when you spoke of the ceremonies and stuff like that, it's refreshing because I went that same path. I really dove into the Tibetan tradition and the Limra and the ceremonies, and I felt that same cloudiness. But the question I do have for you is, when was it where you actually felt, when you transitioned to Teacher David's teachings, that you felt like that lift off of you? Was it like when you really started in with the meditation, or was it like just within like the first classes of listening?
Well, for me, really it was during the COVID, but during the Black Lives Matter thing, I reached out to my former teacher, and I'm like, I'm having problems understanding because, it's so much emotion. I mean, I'm an African American woman, and I'm feeling so much emotion on what should I do, what's, and confusion. And I reached out to my teacher, and I never got an answer, because I know, attachment, but I felt like just give me an answer, because I don't know what's going on with me, with society, what's going on. I don't know how to process it. And then I had stumbled on, Teacher Davis Facebook thing. And I said, oh, okay. And the YouTube, and I was like, okay, let's see. And he addressed different things, and he always said, oh, well, you can reach out. And I'm like, okay, this is scary, and I don't know this person, but I'm gonna reach out. And he wasn't, he talking about the Buddhist teaching that Buddha, everything that we go through, no matter how long it's been, the Buddha encountered, he dealt with. So he was able to explain to me, and I was able to see that, okay, how do I say, it's whatever I'm encountering, it's not something that the Buddha didn't encounter. It's not something that others beings don't encounter. So I am able to sit with it and work with it. And it's not an instantaneous thing, but it's a constant work. It's a constant. But it's like, oh, okay, I see it. If I don't see it now, I see it. It does appear. So I'm like, okay, it's nothing new, So I guess that's, for me, that was it. It's like, okay, he explained it. He had time. It wasn't, okay, do the taras, do this, ceremony, do this. And I was doing all the ceremonies, and I was doing all the chants, and I was doing, prayer, just sit there and do the prayers and the chanting and for long life and all that. And also too, the Bodhisattva vow. I mean, I'm sitting there going like, okay, well, enlightenment, and it never dawned on me, enlightenment, I want everybody to be not enlightenment, but to be enlightenment first before, and then I'll wait and wait. But it's like, maybe not everybody chooses to be enlightened. Maybe people, for whatever reason. And so why am I sitting there going like, okay, I'm gonna hold the door open for you. I'm not gonna go through, but I'm gonna hold the door. Hopefully you'll go through. But if you don't, then I'll just wait. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It didn't, the some of the rituals and stuff, it didn't make any sense after, I was talking to Teacher David. I'm like, yeah, I never thought about that. Why am I, if I something I haven't experienced myself, why am I trying to let everybody else do it? And I haven't even experienced myself. So yeah.
Yeah.
If that
Thank
makes
you.
sense.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And using your analogy, Denise, if everyone's holding the door, who's going to walk through it?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good analogy, right?
So yeah. So thank you, Teacher, because I had never even, crossed my mind to ask, like, okay, well, yeah, like the long life thing. It's like, okay, then why isn't everyone who's been, why aren't they been for thousands of years still alive? And why am I? Yeah. So, yes.
All right.
So that was it. It's just the question is like, oh, yeah. So it doesn't make sense.
Thank you for sharing, Denise.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
Teacher
Thank
David.
you.
Teacher David, we have a couple comments on YouTube. What would you say to someone that just comes out with this? I'm suffering and I can't take it anymore. What advice would you have for a person like that?
Well, if somebody's having suffering, it means that there's attachment there. There's craving, desire, attachment. The mind isn't practicing. It doesn't understand what's causing the suffering. So it's very difficult to eliminate the suffering if you don't understand what's causing it. So you've got to start from the beginning. This book is the beginning, volume 1, developing a life practice, the path that leads to enlightenment. And even if this is your first time coming into our group learning program, next week on Sunday, we're starting with chapter 3, and this is where things really get started. Even though we've had a bunch of classes, those were just really classes that were overviews in order to kind of help people see the path as a whole. But now, starting next week, we're really going to start moving into the heart of the book with chapter 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, continuing on. So I would say download this book, or get a printed copy, start reading it, read all the way up to chapter 3, and start joining us for classes regularly every week on Sundays for sure. And if you can join on Wednesdays as well, and gradually, slowly but surely, start trickling these teachings into the mind and start developing your life practice. This book is going to walk you through how to develop your life practice. This group learning program is going to walk you through how to develop your life practice. If you do the work to understand these teachings and practice them as the Buddha shared them and as I'm sharing them, you'll experience the results.
Thank you, Teacher David. There's a question from Tonka on YouTube. They ask how non-duality relates to this teaching.
People use this word non-duality or duality. I'm not exactly sure how they're using the word because different people use it in different ways. And the Buddha never used this word. I'm not 100% sure of what people mean by this word. Nick, if you have a definition for the word, I can respond based on your definition, or if this person would like to put their definition of what that means. But because the Buddha never used this word and it's something that people are starting to use nowadays, I'm not 100% sure what people mean by that.
Teacher David, I've seen people use that as well. I don't have a definition of my own.
Okay, so if that person could maybe share their definition and then we can update the question from there if we still have time in the class, I'd be pleased to answer the question. Or if you're still listening, you can contact me privately and we can talk about it through private message as well.
Thank you, Teacher David. I also went ahead and put your one-on-one personal scheduling, the links to it in Facebook, YouTube, and Zoom.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so if that person is still with us and you would like to get an answer to that question, feel free to reach out to me privately and we can talk. Any other questions, or anybody else that would like to share their thoughts on why they chose to study Gautama Buddha's teachings?
Not seeing any other questions, Teacher David. Looks like that's all we have for today.
All right. Well, thank you all for sharing. Thank you guys for being brave to come from YouTube and Facebook and log into Zoom. This is helpful to you. It's helping you to break through that shyness or that fear or whatever is holding you back. Not that everyone has to be in Zoom. That's why we have all these different methods of learning, Zoom, Facebook, YouTube, the podcast. We also stream to places like Periscope and Twitch and things like this. So there's always ways that you can learn, but coming into Zoom like this, and if you're fearful of that and you're feeling apprehensive about that, doing that occasionally can help you break through that, because what the unenlightened mind wants to do is have aversion and push that away. So if you confront it and log in occasionally to a place where you are apprehensive about logging into, that can help you break through any kind of shyness or any kind of fear or anything like that. So next week on Sunday, we're going to be in chapter 3, which is titled Enlightenment. What is enlightenment? The reason why this chapter is at the beginning of the book is that if you're going to take a journey from point A to point B, you need to know what point B is. If you're going to go from Washington, D.C. to San Francisco, or if you're going to go from Cairo to Luxor, or you're going to go from Bangkok to Chiang Mai, or any of these different cities, you're going to be interested to know what is that city that you're potentially going to travel to. What's it like there? What are the parks? What are the streets to get there? What's it going to be like when I get there? How will I know when I got there? These kind of things are really important. So this journey to enlightenment, I felt it was really important to have one of the beginning chapters, chapter 3, to explain what enlightenment is. So you have a very clear picture of what enlightenment is. Because then if you're where you're at now in the unenlightened state, if you know what enlightenment is, then you're more likely to be able to progress to that goal. Whereas if you didn't know what enlightenment was and you just got onto this path and be like, all right, I'm going to try to get to enlightenment. Well, what is that? I don't know. So how could you go from one city to another city if you didn't even know what that other city is? Why would you even be interested to go to that other city? And you wouldn't know that you've gotten to that other city if you didn't know something prior about what that other city was like. So in chapter 3, I describe very clearly for you what enlightenment is and all the different aspects of enlightenment, how to progress to enlightenment. And we're going to be discussing that in our class next Sunday. So you're welcome to read before and or after class. And then on Wednesday, we're going to be in our second class of our 4-part series on loving kindness meditation. I'm going to be just reviewing very briefly about what I taught in the previous class about loving kindness meditation, so that the students who join us for the first time and those that are joining us again will have a refreshed memory of what loving kindness meditation is all about. And then we're going to do a loving kindness meditation session together. And we'll have multiple sessions of that, up to 4 sessions of loving kindness. And then I'm going to start a 4-part series on chanting and help you to understand the chanting. And then by the time we get to the end of that, we'll just be rotating between breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation each week, helping you to build up your practice. In those Wednesday classes, there's a great opportunity to ask any and all questions that you like. On the Sundays, we tend to keep our classes targeted to the topic that we're discussing and any questions related to the topic that we're discussing. But on Wednesday, it's all open to any questions that you might have. So you're welcome to come to those Wednesdays classes to learn meditation, to practice meditation, to ask any and all questions that you like as a result of coming together on Wednesday. So again, thank you all for joining. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts and answering questions and having this discussion. It's really nice to have these kind of discussions with you guys. And It'll be interesting to do the same thing this summer when we get together for the retreat in Arlington, to be able to be in a room with all of you guys and to sit down and have a meal with you guys and walk down the street and go to some of these excursions at the different museums and different things that we're going to be doing together. It's going to be really nice to spend time with all of you guys and get to know you in person, even more so than I already do from all the online interactions that we have. So thank you all for joining. We'll see you guys in a future class. Have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Sawadee krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.